Welcome, space nerds, to the Citizen Central podcast. We are back today. It's been a cool minute, but every month we like to try and get together with all of the folks, well, at least some of the folks, the best that YouTube and Twitch have to offer. I am joined by 4 creators to discuss what's going on with Star Citizen right now. 4.7 just came out, crafting is landing, mining is taking a big step up, armor engineering, the Aurora Mk2. Holy crap, there's a lot going on. So I thought I'd bring in some of the bestest of friends that I haven't gotten to talk to in a little while. Premo, actually. I think this is your first time coming on, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah,
Excited
cool.
to be here. Thank you.
This is going to be a good talk. Starjump was actually going to join us today, but had to jump off real quick for the kids. Kids come first, as always, folks. We got to grow the garden. So I'll be joined here by Premo, Red Monster, Farrister, and we hope to have a wonderful, entertaining, and informative talk for you today. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves first, though. You didn't come to hear me. So let's start with Premo, my friend. Can you tell the folks where you come from? What got you into Star Citizen? What did you come to this game to find?
Yeah, right on. So I'm Premo. Premo Says Things on YouTube. I do primarily narrative videos, specifically most notably for Red Dead 2 and then Star Citizen. I'm kind of a young person a new player into the verse. I did not even hear about Star Citizen or CIG or Squadron 42 before 2025. So I was playing No Man's Sky, I just wanted to fly a ship. I just wanted to fly a spaceship. And I got into No Man's Sky. Great game. Wasn't for me at the moment. And started seeing some space games, shorts here and there because of the No Man's Sky content. And finally found this really high definition game of somebody flying a spaceship, and figured out that was Star Citizen, and got into the game about mid-January, right after 4.0, and played it every day for 3 months. It was just had a romantic affair with it. It was an awesome game. So I come from MMOs of like World of Warcraft and stuff. Been playing World of Warcraft since 2005. So Star Citizen has been absolutely mind-blowing. It's been wonderful to create content for. The community's been awesome. It's quite the community. So yeah, that's where I come from.
They get you with the graphics. They keep you with the community.
Once I saw those graphics and I saw somebody, you can fly a ship. Hey, I don't care about the bugs. This guy's flying a spaceship. I'm aboard.
Yeah. I mean, if I could fly through space buggy, it's barely better than not flying at all. Don't take that to heart, CIG. I am very interested, though, in hearing your perspectives today as we go through this conversation. Coming in after 4.0, it's like a very big shift from before 4.0, so that'll be interesting. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
We'll go in clockwise here. Obviously, I am next, and as you can tell, looking at that tomato here on the screen, I'm sure you noticed that the mouth is not moving. My camera's not working today, so I am just a picture for this one. So special shout out to Premo and Red Monster for being the sole cameras on the screen today. I'm sorry, guys. But Red Monster, how about you? Can you give the folks a little introspection into where you come from? What do you do for Star Citizen gameplay?
Yeah, so I've been streaming over 4 years now for Star Citizen, primarily focused on industrial gameplay. So that's mining. It's been salvage. Now it's going to be into crafting and base building. You can find me on Twitch or YouTube at RedMonsterSC. And took a bit of a hiatus recently as I relocated my family across country, and we're getting settled in a new house, new state, and I'm getting my studio back up and running, and of course balancing my stream time with some honeydew projects, but we'll get that sorted. I'm excited to see the start of crafting and where it's going to go for the long term, talking about base building, the industrial, really kind of portfolio coming together in a more focused ecosystem. So
Okay, cool. And how'd the move go? Moving's never easy, dude.
oh man, yeah, I'm way too old for this crap. I also no, it was good. The process of finding a house and getting everything backed up. It's you don't realize how much stuff you accumulate, especially like my studio. I had purposefully designed my display case to be like to be disassembled, like kind of modular, and
Hmm.
yeah, I was glad to be able to take that. But it's I've got to paint the walls. I got a lot of stuff to do here, so it seems like the honeydew list goes and goes along with a new job. So it's a work in progress. I've got a couple more weeks before things are going to start to feel settled. But yeah, that's
Well, I'm happy it worked out, dude. That's
oh,
man, moving is
yeah.
rough. And
I'm
just
loving the new area. So
where'd you move to? What state you go to?
moved from basically Salt Lake, Utah, out to west of Portland. I'm in Beaverton, Oregon now.
Oh,
So
nice.
traded the high desert for a nice forest. So
Hey, I think we're on a closer time zone now. Very nice.
oh yes.
Cool. Just to keep us on track with Premo, what brought you into Star Citizen?
So I had heard a coworker, like at the time I had just built a PC. I was playing like Diablo 3. And a coworker of mine was talking about this space game where, you could fly these spaceships around and it was like really ambitious. So I checked it out, and yeah, ended up buying the Mustang Alpha starter pack. And that was back in about 2014, 2015. Um, so yeah, started then, was playing around for a little bit, and yeah, it got me hooked then. Just as far as seeing them releasing the persistent universe, getting our first views of Olisar and like the 2.63, what the bubble of Star Citizen was then, and
Oh my
yeah, I kind
gosh.
of stuck around with it for a while. So yeah,
Cool. Yeah, that's man, that was a long time ago. Uh
yes.
so was it mining that reached out to you and made you actually pull the trigger, or was it just the general game?
I mean, we really didn't have mining at that point at
Well,
all. It
the
was just
idea of the
general.
possibility of it.
The idea of an expansive universe I could go and explore and do my own thing in,
Okay.
right? That was the concept at the time. And, they were starting to deliver because, yeah, when we first got 2.63 or whatever, yeah, we had Port Olisar and there was a couple of moons. Like we had Security Port Korea, and you could potentially fly down to Selin. But yeah, it was very much a very small fishbowl. The fishbowl's expanded since then, but I was enamored by the vision of what it could be, the things you could do within that environment once they got it to the right broadness, I guess.
It's that's so you just kind of became the mining guy over time.
Yeah, it was something I started exploring as I was getting back into the game. I started, took a little bit of a break because of computer compatibility issues. That was, I think in the early 3.0 days. That was rough. But yeah, I got back into it and realized like I kind of enjoyed mining. It was a skill-based mini game that I appreciated. And yeah, I just decided to start making that kind of I wanted to have a chill Sunday afternoon or Saturday morning. So I started with a Saturday morning mining session. I realized I wasn't doing my yard work and stuff at home, so I switched it to Sunday and kept my Saturdays for that. But that's what it started off with, and kind of stuck. So
Cool, dude. Well, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying glad to have you back making some mining content, and happy to have you on the show, dude.
yeah, thank you.
Farrister, the most handsome mustache in Star Citizen. Tell us where you come from, dude.
Oh, I come from lots and lots of other games. I think I've been a backer in Star Citizen since 2014, so I have a long and complicated relationship with Star Citizen. I think at this point, I'm enjoying the game for what it is now rather than what's missing or coming at some point in the future. Because when you've been following a game for nearly 12 years, the things that are coming in the future have been coming in the future for quite some time. Mostly in Star Citizen these days, I do industrial style stuff. So salvage is probably my favorite. I like hauling, a little bit of mining. Since the engineering patch, if my org are doing events, I like popping on and doing the engineer role and maybe some repairs. And sometimes I do a bit of ship combat, but I'm pretty much exclusively a PvE player. I tend to avoid other players. I'm too old for that now.
They will find you.
They might.
Got to fight them off, Farrister. And what would you say is what brought you to the game? Like, you joined back in 2014. What was it that like kind of tied you in?
I don't fully remember. I think it was reading an article about the dogfighting module that had just been released. So that was
Okay.
like Arena Commander before Arena Commander was even a thing. But then, like, once I got onto the website and I started to read about the vision, started to read the design documents, like from then I was hooked on the idea of the game.
Okay. That's fair. Some people like to fight. I prefer, I'm a more peaceful person, you know, I'm a tomato. So see you fast, Farrister. Well, those are all interesting testimonials on how you came to the game and what brought you to it. Now I'd like to move on to how good are they actually doing at delivering on that? There's a lot of stuff going on in Star Citizen right now. I think more stuff than generally is going on. After a kind of slow year last year with feature development, this year we see engineering coming in, crafting's coming in. They're dropping in another Mark II now, refining, fueling missions. Like it's getting more interesting. But some people still have a problem. The dungeons that are coming in are still very combat focused. The crafting doesn't come in as deep as some people might like. There's always one way or another to go. So I'd like to hear from you guys how you feel they are doing in delivering that experience that brought you into the game in the first place. Do you feel like they're still headed in the right direction, or is it losing its way?
Yeah, maybe I'll take the first stab here. I feel like the experience and scale are kind of, they go hand in hand. They're doing one very well. The scale of what they're bringing in, I don't know how many of you have, last year they introduced the Hathor orbital laser platforms. How many have actually been able to play that and go through the full process? The experience itself is still a little bit problematic because the amount of effort, logistics that go into starting that up. But there is, I don't think there's anything cooler than to hit that big red button and watch an orbital laser shoot from space down and open up a hole. You know,
Yeah.
the rewards I think need balancing, but the scale that I had bought into, I think they're delivering, right? And it's everything else is just balance. Same with the new QV breaker stations. We were able to go do that during PTU, and it's going to be something we'll go for during live. I mean, you start working through one of these stations, and it's got an elevator that has to take you around the entire rock, right? The scale that you're looking at is gigantic. Now, it is also still very much like a PvE focused event. It's not like hardcore mining like you'd expect. You have to go and fight your way through to try and get the components to craft things. You've got to put the lenses in place. You've got to get the power banks all assembled. So you're, I guess, assembling industry and then doing a little bit of mining afterwards. I will say my feedback on the event, the scale, the logistics involved in it feel really cool. And it would be a much better experience if the rewards felt better. Like if you got more high tier stuff where what happens is it opens up and you get kind of mid-level minerals. I'd expect to have a much higher percentage or higher quality level for the rewards. And, that also ties into the Hathor. Originally with Karenite, you'd get that. That was what you needed for the Wicklow ships. Now they've upgraded it to pure Karenite that's on an RNG basis. And I think that dampens the reward aspect of doing some of these more complicated events in an open world where other people can interfere with your progress. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's a good point, because after running a whole rock cracker session, it's interesting that the point you made there, they call it a mining event. You have to go into the mining contracts to get the actual thing. But if you were like, just jump forward 3 years from now when the game is much bigger and people aren't concerned with what's new and what's not. If somebody was in the Nix system and they were looking to get into some interesting new mining situation, and then they took that mission and they went out to the station to do mining, it's like a full hour plus before you actually do your mining, right? Except for the little FPS mining. Is that reasonable?
I would say as a solo player, probably not. But as an org that goes in knowing what to expect, sure. And
yeah, knowing what to expect is it's a a bit of a separator. What do you guys think, Premo, Farrister? Have you have any thoughts on how they're kind of phrasing these dungeons? I know a lot of people have problems with the combat being included, but how do you feel they're doing with it?
Right. I think, especially for what I've seen for Rockbreaker, Onyx, even the contested zones and stuff like that, especially with Rockbreaker, I think the puzzles and everything, the level of immersion is something that not a lot of games offer. And as I said before, I came into this just wanting to fly a spaceship. So the game that they're delivering is just beyond the scope of what I imagined. And I think it's actually beyond the scope of what the general public even knows about Star Citizen. There are things, in my opinion, that when I bring friends into the game, or when I go out by myself, like you said, I told the story just before, where it took me about 45 minutes to go from New Babbage to Levski, and I forgot to medbed on the way there. And when I got to Levski, I just barely nicked Levski. I just barely nicked it, and ship blew up. I'm back at New Babbage. So that was 45. It was on stream, and everybody was kind of laughing and stuff. And I was just like, that's one of those things you just got to brush off when you're playing Star Citizen, and which is great. There's huge consequences for when there's a reason why you got a med bed. But when you show friends that situation, it's a hard one. It's a hard one. So that's one of the things that it's kind of hard to talk to a new player about. And then the experience of the game, like Red said, I think that the scope of the game, the immersion, everything is phenomenal. But the experience, especially with desync, especially with the AI, I'm interested on the refueling missions with the AI.
Boy.
Just sometimes those AIs, you can go up behind them and they don't even notice you, and you can just take them out.
Oh, you could stand in front of them and shoot them and they don't notice you.
Yeah, and then other times they're coming in infinite waves, and all of them are John Wick, and it's crazy. So the experience of the game, I think, I'm a PvE player too. I think with the puzzles, especially with Rockbreaker, what I've seen, I think those puzzles are amazing. Especially with implementing engineering here, and you got to go get this item, and then you got to go get a bunch of items, power this up, and and then you have on top of that NPCs that are shooting, and then you have on top of that PvP. I mean, I like the dungeon stuff because it kind of implements a lot of. You start to see the cohesion of the game. So yeah, I think as somebody that just wanted to fly a spaceship, I think that I've gotten more than my money was worth. So
yeah. Do you feel like You know, that combat adds another layer of interest to things going on. We're working through Rock Cracker together and we're talking about the puzzles. The reward at the end may not be all that great, but the tangible benefit of going through that, you know, getting paid, getting loot, getting materials, it might not be as big a deal to some people as like getting to play a team on a certain, or getting to play a role on a certain team, and you have a specific thing to do and you get sent off down this hallway to do it, and that creates strategy and camaraderie. But do you guys feel like they will always need combat to do that?
It's a hard question to ask. I think that, or a hard question to answer. I think that playing Star Citizen as a solo player is vastly different than playing Star Citizen with a group. Because when you're with a group and something like that Levski Nick happens where you blow up, or if you go through Rock Breaker and you do all this stuff and you're there forever, and then you get to the rocks and they're not, 900 quality. For a solo player, that might be tough to get through. But when you're with people, especially when you're with people that I have a few friends that play the game that they just want a PvP. So it makes it a lot more fun when you're with a group and you have those roles and stuff like that, and you have people that are interested in different things, where org gameplay comes in. But as a solo player, sometimes that stuff is hard.
Yeah, and it's an interesting conversation, I think, to go through of how much of hyper valuable resources should be acquirable by single players versus a group. You know, maybe pure Karenite can only be gotten by Hathor, which generally does require a group. But maybe also if you're a single player and you get a really high reputation with some group in Nix, you can go into their store and buy a little bit off them. Takes a bunch more time, but not as hard.
Yeah.
And I think those angles are the ones that are really still very obviously missing from the game.
And there's well, I was just gonna say that there's also the solo players that kind of come in out of nowhere and just kind of go unnoticed into those caves and get the Karenite and just leave.
Yeah, just sneak in. Shout out to Bed Bananas.
There's a balance between like the solo player that can come in and do something kind of stealth mode. You talk about groups running Hathor. Like I've heard of people saying, they went and just soloed it and they camped out at the event for an age, right? Where, my experience, I typically stream when I'm doing it. So we always have other people that decide to show up and contest the area. And, the size of group that you need to have in order to complete that and like secure it is highly variable based on whether other people know that you're trying to do it, right? It's competitive, and there's a detriment to streaming it and kind of announcing your presence there, because there are people who want to show up and take theirs. But individual gameplay, I mean, it's a tough balance to make, but I do think there should be paths for individuals to earn that, right? Where a large group, sure, you can go and just throw numbers at it, have enough people to blockade the whole thing. But what fun is that for the brand new space dad out there that's just like, hey, I have like 4 hours a week to actually play, and I spent 3 of them trying to respawn my ships in the hangar because I got murdered every single time I flew out there.
Right.
That's I would say that's where things are kind of a struggle. So,
Farrister, do you have any thoughts on how they're packaging the way they're doing these dungeons or events, some people will call them, and the rewards they're actually rolling out with them? Does it feel like they're better for running to get the reward, or better to run just to have fun?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things that have been mentioned that are probably interesting to cover. So I probably disagree a little bit with what Red Monster says around. I've got a lot of sympathy for the space dad, because I think we're the two space dads here. I think there are more space dads coming along, but also I don't think everything in game needs to be soloable. I think there should be some content that is locked behind actually encouraging people to work together and enjoy. Some of us were talking pre-podcast about our experiences in World of Warcraft. And for me, my most fond memories in World of Warcraft weren't stuff where I went off by myself to do stuff. It was when we had 5 people working together, 40 people working together to achieve something that was actually quite difficult to achieve, and you needed to get organized. So I think Star Citizen probably needs to find a balance between having things accessible for everybody, but also catering for that need to organize and rewarding players that do that. Some kind of group finder might go a long way to helping those space dads get involved, because half of the challenge in this game is just getting everyone in the same place. But I'm okay with the idea that some content could be gated behind groups. I think in terms of the events
like-
themselves, I think in terms of the events themselves, your original question around are they too combat focused? I think probably at the moment, yes. But with what I've just said in mind, there needs to be an element of risk versus reward. People should earn their rewards. There should be some element of challenge in there. And that's easiest to do with combat. But again, we were just talking about World of Warcraft. To be clear, I do not want a World of Warcraft copy. Star Citizen should be something very different. But there are some interesting learnings that you could take from it. So, for example, most of the dungeons and instances in Warcraft have some kind of combat involved, but many of them also have some more interesting mechanics than just combat. Like, you have to work together, you have to focus on certain things, you have to split your responsibilities. And for me, I think mining is probably one of the opportunities in Star Citizen to have some more interesting options for risk versus reward. I think the combat is probably, this is an easy way to do it. But like for me, mining is not necessarily a chill thing. You know, even with the mining gameplay we've got now, you've got to really manage what you're doing. Otherwise, that rock is going to explode and there's going to be damage. I think for group mining gameplay, there could be some really interesting mining gameplay that introduces a risk and reward mechanic. And that's probably more of what I expected from Rockbreaker when it was kind of announced last year. So to be clear, that's not a criticism of the event or anything like that. I think it's a very interesting dungeon as it is. But I think there are probably some opportunities to do things slightly differently, to still have that risk versus reward element, but maybe use some of those more interesting non-combat mechanics.
I do agree there. I also agree that not everything should be achievable by single players. There's a difference between, like, a lot of people will think of one idea of multiplayer when you talk about an MMO, but there's a difference between getting together with a big group, going out and doing something like a Hathor, versus staying as your one lonesome self and putting out a sale on the auction house and transferring somebody to somebody else. Those are both multiplayer, but they don't require the same amount of interaction. I think a lot more people are open to that latter style more. And that's probably the best path for CIG to take in terms of MMO-fying the game, I guess you could say. Like, a lot of people want to just be able to trade stuff.
Yeah. I think trading is definitely a fundamental pillar of this economy that's missing. And that's where the solo player can really get engaged, because maybe there are going to be things that you can only, like, you can't show up with a group of 30 people and run a specific event, or, you know, mine a specific material. It's just too rare, or, you know, some logistical hurdle that, you know, it just isn't worth it to have everybody after it. Having an individual player that can then, you know, collect that, go sell it for a high profit, you know, but, you know, not lock themselves out. They need to go be able to buy all the materials they need for their crafting recipes, right? Where right now you're doing player-to-player trades through third-party systems, and, you know, there's not a within game engine closed loop to do that. They have to be engaged in those other gameplay loops that are really going to be, you know, focused on large groups. Getting a trading system in, I think, is like kind of the missing piece that will bridge what a solo player versus a group, you know, can actually operate with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're talking about first fixing their chat systems so that we can actually talk to each other, which would be grand. Thank you, CIG. We love talking. But then also after that, they talked about a looking for group system, a chance to basically go in the server and say, hey, I want to run this contract. I want to run this event. I need these kinds of people. You have this reputation. Even with just that little look, like that little example of what that could look like, we already hear complications of CIG or of Star Citizen popping up. Do you guys think that a looking for group app is going to work in Star Citizen, or is it just going to be abused because we don't have the systems in place to make it work?
I've got opinions, but
I could say as like a casual player, I think that the looking for group stuff, I think that the game can remain complex, even the 0 to 1000 quality. I think stuff like that is fine if they figure it out in the inventory stuff, which they will. But I think that things that are easier to get you into the verse, spawning in your hangar, the inventory, like loading up your character, getting out into the verse, and looking for group, stuff like that, where you're not confined to global chat, because a lot of new players are. And global chat, we all know what global chat is. Baron's chat 2.0. But I think that stuff like that, especially for more of the space dads, more of the casual players, even the younger players that just kind of want to get in and get into the verse, I think I would say that's a welcome change. I mean, a lot of the chat stuff I'm very excited for. If we can get more things to communicate in maybe certain sectors of the universe, or things that make it easier to connect with people, get into the verse.
I think any kind of looking for group system needs to be paired with some kind of reputation system, because otherwise it just becomes a way
Nailed
for
it.
people to unlock PvP that perhaps is not what the intention is. So I think some kind of reputation is going to be a really important precursor to that. Or
Yeah.
if it's not reputation, some kind of more consequences for people who betray the spirit. I think the other thing I should probably mention is, because we are some space dads on here, space dads doesn't necessarily mean casual. I think I'm a space dad. I go hard at this game. I'm part of a big org. I know Red Monster like goes deep into mining as a space dad. So I should just stand up for the space dads out there and just say it doesn't necessarily mean casual. There could be some hardcore space dads out there.
Right? You
Yeah,
guys,
like,
sometimes your little boy is standing next to you with all of the mineral statistics on a page. That's why you have a kid.
Yeah. I think you nailed it as far as the reputation. If you're out there looking for group, I think, what was it? The fuel rats from Elite Dangerous. I think they tried to do that. I'm not sure how successful that was, but I could definitely see that being, a source for trolling, right? Because there's no reputation system, there's no crime system, that really matters on the player-to-player interaction side. And yeah, there's no chat moderation. I think all these tools have to come together in a more cohesive environment for those player-to-player interactions to really be, a source of, authentic requests, right? If someone's out there just spamming a request for, a medical rescue, there's a lot of people that are coming out and abusing that, finding vulnerable players and, exploiting that. And there's no repercussions,
No.
right? That's the problem now. And the reputation and the crime system have to be paired with whatever improvements they're trying to make. So,
do you guys think they're gonna figure that? Like, I can't imagine how we could go much longer here without reputation or some way to know what's going on with people. Do you think we're gonna see that sometime soon?
Hope so.
I mean, realistically, yeah, I think they need it to be a part of kind of the ongoing gameplay. They talked about that. That's been part of the vision that they've sold, and hopefully with the new social updates, that will be something that's persistent. But I think not having seen many of the fruits of that labor yet, where we're currently at, basically every time I pop in, I either hit F12 or now I'm scrolling into my group chats where I can filter out a little bit of what's being posted up on the chat setup. So
Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily has to be reputation. I think the alternative is some real hard consequences for people who break laws in game. So at the moment, if you go and like, take somebody out in Stanton, which is a fairly high sec, it's not perfectly high sec, but it's fairly high sec system, like you get a bit of a crime stat. Oh no. And then if you do eventually get apprehended and caught and go to prison, you walk out of prison. Like there's no real consequence there other than a minor short inconvenience. I think the other alternative to reputation is you actually introduce significant consequences for people. And that might be advantageous as well, because it gives people the flexibility and the freedom to say, hey, situationally, there's an opportunity for me to betray my entire group here and steal the loot at the end of it. But then everybody in the group who's been betrayed and it's been a pretty sucky experience for them kind of knows, well, this guy is going to be in prison for the next week and they've got no way out of it. I'm not saying that that's the solution, but some more meaningful consequences for in-game law breaking might actually sidestep the need for, because even a reputation system, right, that could be gamed by some of these orgs that the type. They'll be like, hey, let's all just give each other 5-star reps so we look like really good guys, and then we'll join a group and troll them.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like about their beacon thing is like they're going to do the rep system, but then they're also going to show what happened in the last 5 things. But I guess, yeah, if you do it with somebody who's friendly every single time, you're just going to have 5 good encounters in a row. But then, even then, when you go off and you do something bad, it still shows on your record. So I don't know. Human nature is a fickle thing, and I know reputation is going to be gamed, but any feedback would help at this point.
I think even just a blocking mechanism in the game would be a huge thing. Personally, I do this kind of funny joke game loop for myself where I've got the Whammer burger skin for the freelancer, and I go out and I offer burgers. I'll deliver it to you. They're 3 AOE each. It's just a fun. I mean, I don't care if they pay me, but it's just a fun thing to go out and see what people are doing in the verse and deliver. They go crazy when I show up with the Whammer mobile, but there are definitely some people that have asked for me to come to them and on site just destroy the vehicle, or when I'm streaming there's like multiple ships on the pad that we landed on and only the Whammer mobile is targeted. And I think that not only like a reputation thing, but just a blocking, just to remind you, or like set a note for certain people to remind yourself that this is the encounter that I had with this person. That functionality is in World of Warcraft. You can add people, you can block people, you can ignore people, and you can set a note on why you friended them, why you ignored them. I think just having that note system would be huge for the game. So, like a personal reputation.
Our last Citizen Central, we had a Star Wars Galaxies counter on the bottom corner. You guys gonna make me put a WoW counter up for today's episode, man?
I know. I'm sorry about that.
I'll happily talk about Galaxies as well if that would help to even things out.
Oh man, we've got enough of that to go around for sure. Let's turn towards something a little bit more current. We've kind of bounced off of this a little bit today, but I want to dive fully into crafting and what it's brought to the game, how it's changed the game. First of all, we say that a lot of things are game changers in Star Citizen, and to be fair, with a game that's so simple, a lot of bringing in things does change it quite a bit. But would you say that crafting in 4.7 is an actual game changer? And if you would, what is the scale of that for you? I mean, obviously, Premo, you came a year ago, so like things are a little different. But for you guys who have been here since the beginning, is this like a 3.0 caliber kind of change? Is this a 3.15 sort of when they brought in looting and inventory? Where does this sit in terms of significance for the game for you guys?
So crafting significance right now, I mentioned before the pod, I think, yeah, crafting some armor, getting some blueprints, it's seeing what the structure and the bare bones of the system is going to look like. For me, it's going to be relevant when I can go and craft my own mining lasers, my modules, the gadgets, things that I can give specific unique bonuses to, and have a reason, to feed that in through the full system. I think if I don't have access to that yet, or the ability to upgrade, that's those ship weapons and components and stuff. Yeah, sure, FPS armor and weapons, they're cool. Like, to be able to see the number go up and down, it's irrelevant to what I'm engaging with. Obviously, like, I'm gonna try and use those weapons when I have to go do missions or get into combat situations. But what I really want out of it is to upgrade the components for my mining setup or my salvage lasers. Get those things that are going to be more effective for what I'm doing to harvest those materials. That's where I think it's going to be the most relevant. And right now, I see the structure. I can tell that there's a rule set in place that makes sense. It's just those rules aren't written for the things I want just yet.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's a game changer because I think it builds off of all the things we already have. For me, that's what's exciting is we're at a point in Star Citizen where something new that comes along, like crafting, kind of like gives you additional reason to do stuff that we're already doing. So whether that's out hunting blueprints through doing some of the missions and quests, or whether that's going out and mining to get some of the materials, it's like another reason to go out and do things. I do agree with Red. Like, this is very early. We're not at the stage where people are crafting like ships or anything like that. So I don't know that I would say it's necessarily a game changer. But I see so many people saying, oh, I'm going to go off and do this because I get blueprints for it. And there's also something about making your own gear. Now, like, that gear, I don't think is so strong that like it's worth finding always the 1000 stuff, but it does give you a nice little buff if you do use that stuff. But I think for me it's more giving people a reason to play, and that's the strength of it.
Would you,
Right.
I mean, would you be open to considering that a game changer for people though? It's changing the reason people are doing things, right?
I don't know. Like, I'm open to the idea, but ultimately, it's the people themselves that will say whether it is. But for me,
True.
it's not. Like, I don't think it is drastically changing the way that people play. Like, if you're going out blueprint hunting, you're going out and doing the content that was kind of there anyway. You're just getting a slightly different reward at the end of it. I think that incentive to do it is more interesting. But I do think that crafting down the line, when it gets to things like, I don't know, crafting bases or crafting ships or something like that, that's when it gets to the point where I'd say it is changing the game. But I think it's certainly breathed some fresh lifeblood into things. I don't know. Maybe the others disagree.
So a bit of a fundamental shift, but a start. It's really when they bring in the ship crafting, you think it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, and base building.
Yeah, base building. I can't wait to see what they do with the freaking. Actually, sorry, I want to go back to something Red Monster said earlier. I don't know if this was before the podcast or in the beginning, but one of the most disappointing things for me in crafting is that we aren't seeing items craftable. So like, it would have been amazing for this to be the opportunity for them to be like, you can craft a tractor beam multi-tool attachment that can lift a 32 SCU box on the planet because you've put that much stats into it. Or you can craft a Helix 2 light mining laser that can crack a 50,000 unit rock because it's got more power output because you crafted it. But because it's just FPS weapons and armor right now, I do think it really misses out on being a little more interesting in the non-combat realm of stuff. But yeah, base building seems like the real change. You guys think that they're going to be moving forward with this? Is it the kind of thing you think they're going to drop crafting in, and then we're going to wait 3-4 patches before there's another change?
Hopefully they bring it in soon. I know there's a lot of content assigned to crafting that's still not in. You know, we got a basic set of blueprints that everybody's got. You can go earn other blueprints. There's other factors for that gameplay rule set that they need to dial in. Base building, I think, is going to be a natural progression of, you know, that crafting system. You've got material inputs, you have to put it through a special processing machine, and then you get an output. But you know, I think base building introduces the complication that now you're creating a physical space rather than you know, a physical item that's movable between spaces. And so, you know, how much more complicated is that? It seems like a lot, and you know, I'm not sure what we're going to start with. You know, where we're going to be able to play with that. So.
I think for base building, the complication for me isn't really in the crafting side of it. I think the way that the crafting works seems like it will work for most things. So I think it would work for building bases. I think it would work for building ships. You just need to scale the size of the crafter. I think the challenge for base building is more like, how do you solve the who owns what land, who has permissions where? Like, that's for me the more complicated gameplay piece to work through. But in the short term, like, you could do some quite fun things that wouldn't you need you to resolve that. So, for example, players can build walls or bunkers or whatever that you can just place down anywhere outside of an armistice zone, and then just let people like sandbox play with it. For example, you wouldn't need to necessarily solve all of those problems. But I think the basis of what we've got in crafting, if it continues to work as it's working now, it should be as simple as just you introduce more blueprints or larger crafters and you're good to go, I guess.
I think that I mean, coming into the game from last year, I was told so many of these things: the crafting, the engineering, a new solar system were years away. That's what I was told. And to find out that all of this stuff has been implemented, even in a small form, this year, I mean, within the year that I have started, has been interesting. It kind of makes me a little bit more hopeful. With the crafting stuff, I think personally, game changing, like you said, maybe it is just a expansion on what we already have. Maybe it is game changing. I'm not sure, but just having the directive, having like a goal to go out. One of the things, and not to bring up another game, but Arc Raiders, sometimes I just go into a lobby to get what I need for a wolf pack. And to have that type of directive in Star Citizen, to just go out and actually don't have that paralysis of so many things to do. Sometimes I log into Star Citizen just to log into it, and then I get out into space and I'm like, where should I go? You know, if I go do that, then I have to go do this and this and this.
Yeah.
So I think that crafting will have that kind of directive gameplay, that you have a purpose. You know, I have a purpose to go find blueprints, find materials to craft stuff with. I would be very surprised if base building came in soon, but again, I have no idea. I would love base building. I think that base building is going to be a huge game changer. I think that people that are on the outside of people that still have not heard of the game, which is hard to imagine, but I was there in 2024. So I think that people that have never heard of the game will see stuff like that and see how that will be kind of like a watershed moment, I think, for the game as an MMO. Again, I have no idea how they're going to figure out, like Farrister said, land ownership. What happens when somebody just wants to come troll and blow your thing up? How that stuff is going to work is beyond me. I have no idea. I would love to have my base out in the asteroid fields and kind of just away from everything personally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to be nice to just be able to find the place that you like and settle down a depot or like a cache or somewhere. I find myself a lot of times being rather annoyed that I need to go all the way back to my home location because, you know, you want to, it's easy to store your stuff at your home location. A lot of people will like pick a new different space station or something to go to. But if you just, if you like to do, like maybe you like to run missions on Aberdeen a bunch, it's going to be cool to actually be able to just have a little space that you can call your safe space on Aberdeen. Not to log off and log on since they're going to be adding that to everywhere, but to be able to have all of your gear and your armor and stuff to return home. There's something special about that.
Yeah. Place to hang your coat up after the hard day at work, right?
Yeah.
But
right.
So
I decorate my home hangar a lot, and that's fun.
I try, dude. I can never decide if I want to or not.
It never
you
goes
never know
well.
when
I
it's
didn't say it goes well, but
the efforts I've put into decorating I'll have gotten wiped out with hangars that have just disappeared. And yeah, I would say it's got to be consistent. But
yeah. The base building, though, is interesting because they've talked about some really intense things there. Like one of the most interesting parts of base building, in my opinion, is that you can make a base, and if you don't upkeep it, like in a similar way as Dune, if you don't upkeep it, if you don't keep resources running through it, it's powered and all that stuff, it can slowly go derelict. And they said that over time they want NPCs to spawn there as like squatters, which is just a crazy life cycle for something. If you imagine that base started out as people going out and mining some stuff, and then they refined it, and then they built the base, and then the base was used, and then it broke down, and now it's a new location to go get loot. That stuff is crazy, and I hope they can do something similar to it. But do you think they're going to be able to really meet their goals for base building in this game?
it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I think it again. It's just I mean, not to bring up World of Warcraft again, but player housing was promised in like 2004, and it just came out this year. So,
So
how
what
they're
you're
going to
saying
do that
is Star Citizen base building in 2044. Is that right?
yeah, 2042
Sounds accurate.
yeah.
But
we've seen their design discussions, the talk about the security token system that's planned for the 1.0 release. You know, it will get there. There are land claims, and the structure is, the concept is out there, right? The execution has to happen, and the game engine rule sets aren't there yet. So that's that's the big technical challenge, and their tech debt that they've committed to. So yeah, it's not a short-term vision, it's more of a long-term vision, but they've certainly made steps to get to that direction. And I think they will get it. It's not going to be quick, right?
I think it's a little funny, and also a little bit of a warning to people, I would say. How many things we can still say that for in Star Citizen? Like, this is it's been a long time, and I think everybody should act based on how long it's been and how comfortable they feel with the game like that. But I don't think anybody should be surprised when this takes another 5, 6, 7 years to reach 1.0. And anybody who is excited for that and doesn't want to deal with the journey to that, I think probably should stop watching Star Citizen for now, because a lot of this stuff is far away.
I think I would say, in my experience of late, if you are waiting for a specific ship or a specific kind of piece of gameplay, like, I think that's a sensible attitude to have. Actually, the pace of stuff that's getting introduced over the last year has been fairly good. So there's a lot of people that are going to be waiting for things. Like, if you're waiting for the Banu Merchantman, you've been waiting a while. But like, if you're
that's
waiting
not their
just
fault,
for
though. You can't put that on them.
But if you're waiting just for new ships or new gameplay, actually, we've had a whole ton of new ships. Some stuff that we've been waiting for. We've had a whole ton of new gameplay. So I think it just depends if you're waiting for specifically something. But actually, I have to give credit to the developers. Like the game is growing and expanding over the past few years.
Absolutely. Yeah, this last 12 months has been the most exciting. I mean, they didn't even add features really that last year that much, but the development in general has taken a turn. I mean, you can see it just from the way they've got certain people talking on camera now instead of everybody sharing information. They definitely are like, okay, Rich, you say this, Benoit, you say this, everybody else, like, please don't say this. And I think all of that is making the development feel a little bit more cohesive and less chaotic.
Yeah. And shout out to all the other Blue Whale merchantman owners.
Yeah, that's one of the more embarrassing stories, I would say, of the game's development. But we won't get into that today. I want to turn back to crafting and the 1,000 levels of quality that we are seeing in the crafting game loop. There's a lot of discussion on this, and I definitely see both arguments here. Do you think that the 1,000 levels is too much? Is it bloated? Is it useful? What's your opinion on that?
I have some very specific. We have a few areas in the game where we get an actual ledger type inventory, like that's at the refining kiosk, that's at, in the mining HUD when you're scanning. But as soon as you refine that material, every unique value of quality is its own little physical representation. It's only its own little block of pixels of what that box might be.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me a damn ledger. Right? Give me a table. Don't make me sort through 45 pages of the same shaped box with varying levels of like, I have to memorize what color each mineral is. Just give me a damn ledger, right? That's number one, surface level. Number two is the way that some materials having a higher quality tier within the same rock, with the two entries. To me, that seems like they're trying to have, and this is stuff I talked to severals about, and I said it would be nice to be able to have a chunk of material that's higher quality than the rest, right? And if you get a good break, that works. That's in there. It's not a weighted average now. It's just two distinct, components, and that's.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one of my struggles is that now you don't have a weighted average. You've got distinct quality numbers that sort themselves, and no way to upscale or refine them. So,
oh yeah, dude, don't get me started on the refining.
I think the nightmare comes in with the inventory stuff on that. I know that they have plans for making folders, and you have like a folder of this ore, and then that drops down, and you see all your whole entire quality. I think it is the whole refining process is kind of interesting to me. Getting out what you put in, that's interesting. So yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what Red said.
Mm-hmm. It could be a lot, but I am interested in seeing how those folders work.
Yeah, I saw that in the notes down in the interface, and people are complaining about that a lot. It seems in the conversation. So seeing that, I've seen that not be implemented right now is interesting to me as well, because people are already talking about we've got 3 pages of ore, and then now with the new inventory kind of being a little bit more squashed, you could see that coming up to like tens and tens of pages. So.
Yeah. Joining right after 4.0, you kind of got to miss out on the method of feature implementation that CIG chooses in the alpha phase. This is a little bit more of it. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Farrister, what do you think? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Premo. Sorry.
Go Farrister.
I was going to say I would definitely defer to Red on this. I think Red knows an awful lot about what works, what doesn't work. I think I'm okay with lots of different grades of material, but I think the main issue is, as has been raised, when you do have all those different grades, like managing the inventory just becomes complicated. So, um, yeah, I think it's a legitimate criticism. There are different ways you could solve that problem with the inventory, or you could solve that by reducing the number of different quality levels. Um, but even if you, I think you'd want to have like a decent number of quality levels anyway. So you're probably going to have to solve the problem of inventory.
Yeah, I think also that maybe like in the future with different crafting stuff, maybe there's a reason for the 0 to 1,000 that just isn't apparent right now.
Yeah.
And personally, I would love once ship components are able to be craftable. The one thing that I know that I will always try to get like a plus 900 for is like quantum drives. I want to get places faster. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's probably an argument to be made. I mean, as you said, there might be a reason for 1,000 levels of quality, but there's definitely an argument to be made that 1,000 levels of quality means there's more variability when you're crafting stuff. But is it reasonable for them to have 1,000 levels of quality if, say, one P4R can have 0.1% different recoil rate or whatever than another P4AR that's made with a quality level that's 3 less, it's an 850 quality versus 847 quality. Is it reasonable for them to have that, or like, is that so minuscule that they should just cut that out?
I mean,
think
it's
it's gonna.
levels of significance, right? If we have high crafted armor that was a 3% improvement in environmental factors, is that just rounded to the exact 3? Do I need 1,000 levels of quality? I mean, realistically, I need 6 levels, right? I've got your baseline plus 3 minus 3, right? I guess that's 7, but I don't need 1,000. I need 7. That can be on a compressed scale, but it is going to sort there based on the 1,000 levels. Certain things, yeah. If you have 1,000 levels in between, it would make sense to have that. And if they were grouped some other way where you could have your 800 and 400, in the same inventory container, but the way that you interact with them as a physical box, the icons rather than a ledger, entries on a table, right? That I think complicates it and makes it unnecessarily burdensome, in my opinion.
So for you, the problem really is just being able to handle them. It's not necessarily that they exist, but that they make the kind of inventory and management system more complex.
Yeah, I am fine with them having 1,000 levels of quality, right? Give me a way to consolidate those. Give me a way to, if I save a whole bunch of 300 quality mineral, let me refine that up to something higher quality, with associated loss of quantity. But, give me the option to refine that to enhance it, right? So,
How do you guys feel about Farrister, Premo? You guys have any feelings about the 1,000 levels? Is it pointless? Do you think it's useful?
I feel like in a way it's hard to defend it in a certain way. I mean, when you put it in the way that this is like a point, or this is like a 1%, 0.1% increase or whatever. I think that at the same time, I think that I I would like the game to be complex in certain ways and simple in other ways. I think the inventory should be simple. I think um, figuring out the ore qualities in your inventory, I think that should be simple. Should crafting be simple? Maybe not. I don't know. Should the quality levels be simple? Maybe not. And I do think that for like personally for me, the quantum drive, just having that always on deck, always high quality for all of my ships, I would love that. Guns being high quality for me, I don't know. Couldn't really care less. And then, but for people like PvP orgs. Those guys are going to be the real people that are looking at the higher stuff. And I think that once you get into that level, once you get into the end game, once you get to the higher level stuff of anything you're doing, whether it's Red with his mining or a PvP org, I think the gap isn't going to be whether you got 500 to 1,000, 0 to 1,000. It's going to be that gap from like 800 to 1,000. What gun do you have that is going to be that last 100 for those orcs are going to be huge. So maybe in the end game, 1,000 is what you want.
Yeah. And I think for everybody, you have different levels of importance for different things. For some things, you're perfectly fine crafting with like 500 quality, 300 quality, whatever. It might just not matter that much. And for other things, you might want the highest. Like yesterday, I'm working on a Fresnel and I got it crafted and I was looking for materials and I settled for some pretty high level Janelite and gold, but maybe I couldn't find as high level tungsten. And the fact that there is a difference between the 800 tungsten versus the 700 tungsten, and those quality differences react to the other stuff differently, it definitely, I think, in my opinion, it validates having more levels. But I'm interested in seeing kind of how they handle the management of that. One of the most interesting parts of crafting that we still are kind of iffy on is how much will crafting create parts that we use to craft other parts. So they talk right now with refining being something where you would add iron to carbon and then a catalyst and you'd be able to make steel. What they haven't said is like, can you then use that to make plates and then you combine those plates with bolts to make a chassis and then you use those to make something more, like that satisfactory style. I think a lot of folks are wondering if crafting is going to get there, because once we get there, then the quality levels make a lot of sense, right? If you have like a low level bolt quality, but you add it to a high level plate, suddenly you have a different level chassis, and that just goes all over the place.
Right.
I do have other commitments this afternoon, so I got a hard cut off on my time, but I appreciate the conversation, and good meeting you, Premo. Good talking to you again, Farrister. And I could talk for like 2 more hours about this. I appreciate the discussion and everything going on. So
no, thank you so much for joining, Red. Before you head out, you want to let folks know where they can find your content?
You can find me Sunday mornings, 8 a.m. Pacific time on Twitch or YouTube at RedMonsterSC. My group, the Red Legion, at redlegion.gg, are an industrial focused org. We joke about the space dads. We throw that term around, but basically just gamers focusing on industrial gameplay and crafting, salvaging, mining, and cooperative efforts. So. Yeah, that's where you can find me, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And those of you who watch the podcast know Red Monster's a regular, so keep an eye out for him coming back on the launch sequence sometime soon. Thanks again for joining us today, dude.
Hey, later.
Have a wonderful day.
Have a good one.
Now, for those of you who are we're dropping like flies. Now they're replaced by Crusader and Hurston. But we're gonna switch topics a little bit here and talk a little more about the direction of Star Citizen with respect to the NPCs and AI. One of the things that's been announced for 4.8 in the next update is refueling and refueling missions, both giving fuel to and receiving fuel from NPC ships. Maybe it's the start of AI services in the game, maybe it's not. But do you guys think it's going to expand to give players more help around the game in other ways soon, like maybe revivals or transportation?
I want to hear the OG's opinion on this. Go ahead, Farrister.
I think that would be cool as long as it doesn't always replace players who want to do that gameplay being able to do it. So in theory, you can already get in your Starfarer and go around and offer fuel services to people. But in reality, it's quite difficult to do. I think if we got to a point where if you were downed or you were out of fuel or your ship needed repairs or whatever it is, and you could put in a beacon and maybe 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's an NPC that comes along, and maybe 1 time out of 10, it's a player that comes along who enjoys doing that kind of stuff. That for me sounds like it's really cool. If what it means is that 10 times out of 10, it's an NPC, and that players who actually enjoy medical gameplay or refueling gameplay can't get a look in, I think that will be where I would have an objection to it. But intuitively, I think it feels like a good thing. It gives that little level of backup that says, hey, you accidentally overextended out in Pyro. It happens, but don't worry, you can request refuel and someone will come along and refuel you and you'll pay for the fuel.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. Taking the jobs of players is you know, an important thing to avoid. I think that especially, you know, even thinking about the player that wants to refuel, or wants, you know, they want to stay in the game. They want to stay immersed. They're not the type of player that would just backspace out of the situation.
Mhm.
I think that that's really important. I think it's going to be a while, personally, before you really even see people opting in for the NPCs to help, because the AIs, I mean, they cower when you're around. It's hit or miss whether they're John Wick or like don't even notice you. I can't see a world where, like, in the next patch, where you set out a beacon and somebody comes to you. But right now, Farrister said earlier in the conversation, you set out a beacon for, like, if you're downed and you want to get revived. How do you know if somebody's actually coming? How do you know when somebody is going to come? How do you know if somebody is trustworthy to come? I think that NPCs will be a huge thing for that. Maybe there's some way to opt in, or maybe there's like huge rewards for doing that as a player, or maybe there's some other benefit that when a player actually does that. I'm not sure. I think I hope the AIs become more lively, and
Hell yeah.
I think that's a good step in the right direction. So
Yeah, man. The way that they originally had laid it out kind of made it seem like you'd have a 9-to-1 player to NPC, or rather 9-to-1 NPC to player ratio, or AI rather to player ratio. And the interesting part about that was they would essentially say you could be in a very common place like Stanton, and if you put out a beacon and no players accept it, then because you're in a common place, an NPC might accept that in 20 seconds. If you're in a very out there place, like, I don't know, Hades or something, then you put out a beacon. No players are out there, but an NPC might take 10 minutes to accept it, you know, kind of simulating the idea of the population around you. And I wonder if that's even worth it, or if it's just mainly going to be down to players either wanting help or not wanting help, and how long the average player will actually be willing to wait, even if they know there's help coming.
right. Well, if like refueling missions for players come in, I'm gonna be the first one to do it, because I I like to do the Whammer Burger deals, and I would love to make a gas station in the verse. That would be hilarious, I think.
Yeah.
So
Oh, dude, it would be so cool if they said, hey, if you can put out a public beacon and anybody can know you're offering gas in that system and they can fly to you. That would be sick.
right. Yeah. I think
It
there's a lot of possibilities there.
Same. It certainly, though, I do agree. I think this first iteration of it is going to be rough and bumpy and probably weird, but it is significant. If they can actually get NPCs to come in and refuel us, I think that will be a decent change going forward, because hopefully it means we'll get security and stuff after that.
Right. And like a policing of the verse, you know, especially in Stanton, I think that would be very interesting to see AIs get a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah.
You know,
And I'm seeing
but not broken.
Well, I don't know about that. Sorry. Can't do that. It's either broken or more broken. I'm seeing in chat some talk about the idea of these ambushes and stuff that can happen from this, and that is where the reputation they talked about earlier comes from. So that's part of why it's funny to see this coming in without reputation really moving. But our conversation takes us towards another topic that I wanted to discuss, which does get a little bit from AI, but it still talks about this idea of revivals and things like that. Something that I think was a little bit, I think probably news to everyone, is that they are working on a method of self-revival in the game. Basically, you'd be able to hit yourself with an adrenapen and get yourself back up without waiting for somebody else. How do you guys feel about that?
Farrister?
I'm nervous about it. I think there are instances where you get downed in game that are literally not your fault. Like Star Citizen is still often quite buggy and weird stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some recognition of that is important. But I also think there are players who play the game for the medical stuff. There are entire orgs around the medical stuff. And if you give people the opportunity to self-revive, I think you take away a lot of the value in actually having somebody come and rescue you. So my question is, what's the impact on medical gameplay if you do that? Does it become like just specific situational stuff? So that's probably the thing that makes me nervous, is for those people who play this game to be a medic, if everyone can just fix themselves up, like, does that eliminate that gameplay?
I 100% agree with what Farrister has said. I think that there are times where I am solo. I'm solo a lot in the game. But just out in the boondocks, and kind of something happens that I didn't know was going to happen. You fall accidentally off a cliff, just stupid stuff. And in those situations, I think a self-revival would be pretty handy. I think that it should be, if it does, it's going to be implemented apparently, because it's already implemented in Squadron 42. But I think when it does get implemented, it should be very expensive. And I think that it should be, that red button that you press. And but on the other side of things, like Farrister said, the other day we were picked up we were revived and picked up from I think Daymar, and it was just like such a wonderful interaction to be picked up by these med guys. And they like gave us some stuff and brought us back to the station, and it was just wonderful to be the recipient of that. Not only, and I'm sure they loved the gameplay too. So worried about. I just think that when it does come in, it should be very expensive. It should be very expensive to do.
Yeah, I think it should there should be like a process to it. Like they talked about how it's the adrenapin that gets you up, but for me, it feels like there should be a little bit of a mini game there where you need to use the adrenapin and then maybe wait a little bit.
Maybe you can fail.
Yeah. Like if you use the adrenapin and then maybe kind of like the I know it's terrible, like a golf swing mechanic comes up and you basically have to hit yourself with a med pen like at the right time to finish that revival.
Right.
Because the thing I'm thinking,
like the bar.
Yeah, man. The thing I'm thinking is it can be so disorienting to think somebody is down and then they immediately get back up without any sort of like indication that they're about to. Even if it's not a combat scenario, it could literally just be like you walked in and you found an aftermath of something happening and you're trying to figure out what's going on. You're looking at the signs and everything. And then the guy that was dead just suddenly pops up right behind you. Like, that's not fun.
That just gave me a picture of like, what if there was a PvP org that were like in, I don't know, just rock breaker, and they all purposely down themselves, and then they're just waiting for somebody to come in and just whoop, everybody comes online. That would be crazy.
Just
That'd be
everybody just pops
crazy.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be, I think they'll probably have to do some stuff to make it obvious that you're getting a self revival, because otherwise that's going to be pretty wild.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about the new Aurora. They are bringing in another Mark II, and there's a lot of back and forth about whether or not it deserves to be called the Mark II Aurora or not. How do you guys feel about this new ship and the possibility of other Mark IIs following afterwards?
Well, I think when I saw that, I was kind of mind blown, because the first, besides the cutter, the first ship that I got that was, capable of doing other things that the cutter couldn't do, was the Aurora. And I thought that I'm doing something wrong because the wings should come out. So I love the new ship. I really, really like that. I'm definitely going to get that one. Mark II, I don't know. I think that I actually just saw, I was a little bit confused on that, but I just saw on the subreddit that there was a comparison of the two. And the old one is way smaller, actually. And
Yeah.
so I could see a world where there's Mark IIs, there's Mark IIIs. I hope this is kind of silly to say, but I would love to see a Reclaimer Mark II. I like the Reclaimer a lot, but the Reclaimer's utility function is crazy, in my opinion. So
You should
I
have seen.
think.
Go ahead.
Well, I just think that the Aurora Mark II is a beautiful ship, and I think it's cool. So.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say you should have seen back in the day when the Reclaimer first came out. It was a popular bounty hunting ship. So this would be funny to see a Reclaimer Mark II with a combat variant.
Interesting.
Just a ramming
Cool.
ship, basically. You just drive it into Idris.
Right. I love the Reclaimer, the way it looks and everything. It's just using it is a nightmare.
It needs help.
Me, so
Yeah, it definitely needs help. Farrister, how about you? How do you feel about the Aurora?
So the Aurora Mark II, I've been really enjoying. I think it's a great ship. I like so much about it. I like how it flies. To be fair, the launch price with a game package is a pretty good deal, and it's a pretty versatile starter ship for people who are looking to get into the verse. So I'm a big fan of the ship itself. I like the modularity and the way that works. Ideally, I would like those modules to be purchasable in game as soon as possible. I think you have to pay cash for it. Feels a bit like, but if those modules do become purchasable in game fairly quickly, it also means that there's a nice upgrade path to give a little bit of customization to your ship, which I think for people who are going to be starting with an Aurora is really good. I think we often say all you need to play Star Citizen is that starter ship, and this is a really good choice for that.
Yeah.
I have some conflicting feelings about Mark II in general, and I had these thoughts with the Hornet when that came out. I like that they breathe new life into an old ship. I think we've seen a few Aurora reworks over the years, and I think that work needs to be done. And to some extent, there's a need to financially recoup the investment. I think making the old ship like a bit of a collector's edition is a nice nod to those original Aurora owners, but also I feel like the old Aurora is worse than the new one. So as much as it's a nice nod saying, "Hey, you get to keep this as a collector's edition," the experience on board one is probably not going to be as good as with a Mark II. And I have a worry that it means that they're not going to really get updated, and then they end up being really, really buggy as the game updates around them. I also feel like the original backers should have the option, basically, to get a Mark II for free. If you paid for an Aurora, this is the Aurora now. In 6 months, this is going to be the Aurora, basically.
Or at least a significant discount, I feel like.
Well, even not a significant discount, because this is the new Aurora, it's the same ship. So
Right.
For me, the thing about Star Citizen has always been you pay for your ship, and then that's your ship. This kind of feels a little bit like, yeah, but that's the old version of your ship. This is the new version of your ship, and if you want to play it, you better pay. So I really like the Aurora Mk2. I think it's great. I do acknowledge that it's important to refresh some of these older ships, particularly ships like the Aurora that have been around for a while. I just feel like it would suck if you were an Aurora owner and basically you've got to pay money to unlock the new version of your ship. That's why I've got conflicted feelings about it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I say that pretty much nailed exactly how I feel. I would even I think added some clarity to how I feel about the Aurora and the pricing, because you are right. This is the reason that they bring out Mark IIs. Actually, let me just start over. So I think this is an interesting, weird spot to be in, because the first Mark II with the Hornet was planned. So that made sense. And that always had that reason for existing.
Right.
The second Mark II, which was the Zeus, is a freaking lore. There was never a first one, so that's not really that important. The third, though, is the Aurora here. And they did a good job, I think, of introducing modularity to the starter ships. Like you said, that's a pretty cool way to start out the game, and I think it's a win for them. But it also is, yeah, it's like, how many more ships will get this treatment? Because this is getting the treatment because they needed to basically make sure that every starter ship is equal. So we saw that the Cutter came in, the Intrepid came in. I think there's one or two others that kind of, like the Pisces is kind of down there. They're good starter ships, and they had more than what the original Aurora and Mustang did. So now they're upgrading those to fit. The people who bought those, they don't want to shaft by giving them a new ship because they paid for that original one, so they should get to keep that. I feel like this is kind of a thing that came from what happened with the 300 series, and yeah, I think it was mainly the 300 series that like really got a lot of backlash because it grew so much when they upgraded it. So I get that side of things, and I do totally think that it makes sense to have a Mark II here. But then the question becomes, what other ships can, or rather do need updates that they can update without changing the ship so much they feel they'll shaft the original owners? And Premo, you brought up the Reclaimer. I think that's a good example of one where they could update it, and I could see them updating it in a way that doesn't need a new one.
That's an expensive ship. So if they did a Mark II, I mean, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Like the whole price thing. I wasn't really thinking about that originally, but that is it's definitely a huge part of the conversation. So
Yeah. It's I think the Mark II is definitely an interesting concept, and it's one that could be really, really cool for the game. But that support question is always what comes up. Like Farrister said, it's like, will the old ones keep being supported if you're not even making money off of them anymore?
But here's the thing: they've got away with it with the Hornet. Really, there wasn't a major community backlash. I think they've got away with it with the Aurora. There hasn't been a major community backlash. So this is probably quite good for fundraising for them. So unfortunately, I think they probably will do it again. Like the Mustang, a Mark II, wouldn't be a bad shout. That needs upgrading, making modular maybe.
So do you think that as long as there's a clear reason for it, there won't be backlash?
No, I think people like shiny things. I think ultimately, as much as like we all like to say the only thing you need is a starter ship, and I genuinely think that that's true, and I think the people who will get the most from this game are those that just own a starter ship.
Yeah.
I think most of those people aren't playing the game right now. Probably most of the people who spent their $30-$40 to buy their ship will be waiting for the game to be quote unquote finished, and a lot of the people who are going to end up playing the game might not even bought it yet. And for those people, the Mark I, Mark II, like probably doesn't even matter.
No.
So I think most you see it when you log on Spectrum. Almost most of the activity seems to be in concierge chat, right? These are big spenders that tend to be focused on the game, and they're not that bothered, I don't think, about the Mark I, Mark II because they just buy stuff anyway. So I feel like that's probably why there hasn't been a huge backlash, is because most of the people who spend the minimum amount probably aren't that passionate about the game. That's not a criticism of those people, to be very clear. I just think that we are over-indexed on big spenders at the moment, and you see that by how busy Concierge Chat is on Spectrum. You see
Yeah.
that by the number of Polaris and Idris ships flying around the verse.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a shame for those OG backers of the Aurora. If you literally just bought an Aurora starter package, you kind of have to pay more to get the new one. I kind of feel like that sucks a bit.
Yeah, I am nowhere near the spender that most of the core players are. I have a ship pledged, but I don't really intend on going over that. And I don't really have the means to go over that. But the interesting thing about these ship releases, especially with the Wolf, I fell in love with the Kruger Wolf, and I just accepted that I'm not going to see this ship for at least like a month or 2 months when it comes back into game and is purchasable in game. And when it came in, I have it. When the wipe comes, it'll be gone. But that's kind of the same attitude that I have personally. So my original idea of Mark IIs for me personally is I wasn't really intending on purchasing it with real money. I was intending on purchasing it in game. So for somebody like me, I feel like it's an interesting concept, So I don't know. There is that kind of discord with purchasing stuff in game versus purchasing stuff out of game.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair enough until you get to the point with this where the Aurora is basically a starter ship. So for
Right.
most people, this probably isn't the ship you buy in game. Like, you could say that for the Hornet. For people who own a starter ship, the Hornet might be their first combat ship upgrade, so buying a Mark II in game is fine. Whereas for the Aurora, most people aren't going to go back and buy a smaller starter ship. Although, if it does become available for Alpha UEC, you should totally do it for the Mark II Aurora because it's really fun to fly. But I think a lot of people that are kind of buying the ship would buy it as this is my starter ship, and then I'll buy the rest in game. So.
The biggest thing I think CIG needs to communicate to people about these ships is the reason they're doing this is because, well, I mean, honestly, Rasak said it in chat, it's tech debt. They wouldn't be... I know that they've always talked about having different years models of ships, and that was something that Chris wanted to do, but there are a lot of things that Chris says he wants to do that just aren't going to happen in this game. And I don't think that if they had this tech debt problem, I don't think they would be pursuing Mark IIs like this. But the fact of the matter is they got better at making ships over time, and the first ships that they made are wildly outdated. Some of them can be updated. Like, some of them will still work and continue. I think the Caterpillar is probably going to stay the Caterpillar, right? That was a very old ship. But some of them just simply won't. And the Aurora was one of them. And so they have to find a way to upgrade it without probably getting sued for changing the thing that people bought in the original pitch, right? So it's a weird situation for them to be in. But like Farrister said, yeah, it's not going to matter to people in 6 years what version of the Aurora they're getting. They're getting the one that is new, the one that comes with the game. It's more so they get into a little bit of a sketchy area when they start to say, well, we're doing this because we want to make sure everything's up to date for 1.0. All those people who invested in the, I can't say invested, all those people who spent money on this and helped to back the game to be made, thank you for that money. But we need to focus on these new people. And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but
I don't think they have a problem with radically changing ships and making them completely different to what people expected. I don't think they've got any problem doing that. I can think of a few examples where they've already done that. I think this is, we want to like recoup some of basically the money for the development time that we spent. And we tried this with the Hornet Mark I. It kind of worked. I've bought an Aurora Mark II. I quite enjoy it. It's my new starter ship. So I think it's probably a financial decision rather than we're worried about being sued kind of decision. I think the other interesting thing, sorry, just on the Mark II, I've just remembered I wanted to talk to you about it because I thought you might have some thoughts. I think this is a really interesting form of modularity because what we've got with this new combat module is not just the missiles, which is kind of like the torpedoes you got with the Tele, but you've also got an additional component slot in the shield generate in there. And I think that the fact that that works and the technology for that all hooks up to the rest of the ship and the engineering gameplay is actually really interesting and opens up some interesting options. So, for example, could you have a new module for the Redeemer where instead of it being torpedoes or cargo in the middle, you've got like a heavy power plant and a heavy shield generator, and suddenly it's not a stealth Redeemer, it's a not Redeemer. What am I thinking of? Torpedo one, Retaliator. The Retaliator, and it's no longer a stealth bomber. It's a like combat Tally variant where you've got like big power plants and big shield generators, and just like the fact that they can do that modular approach where these modules can have components attached to them, I think is actually a really big win. I've not heard many people talk about, and I say that as a Javelin owner. I'm excited for what that could mean.
That is pretty cool, actually. It would be crazy to see battery modules start to come out for ships.
Yeah.
So
that's another thing with crafting. When crafting comes in for ships, it's going to be pretty interesting. How
Yeah.
people, the different types of things.
That's something I was very happy that they made clear at the end of 2024 was that engineering and the power that we put into like our thrusters and our and even now we're discovering our radar with 4.7, like our power and engineering will affect how our ship performs. It's not just everything flies at a capped top speed. That was really good to hear. But Farrister, going back to what you said, so you feel you think they are lying about the incompatibility issue?
What do you mean the incompatibility issue?
Like that they want to that whole thing that they want to update these ships so that they're not having to change the old ship too much with the Mark IIs.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old and cynical. Like ultimately, the Mark Ones are still in game for now, so they are there. They are supported. I guess I've got experience in things like DCS World where module compatibility has kind of failed over time. Now it's a slightly different situation because sometimes those modules are third-party developers, but I have bought aircraft in DCS World that are no longer in the sim and others that have problems and things like that. I think we know that some of the older ships are more problematic than some of the newer ships, and I think if they're not actively on sale, the incentive to update those is going to be quite low. Because why would you fix a ship that is literally making you zero money? Whereas if it was a problem with the Aurora Mk2, that might be your default choice of starter ship for people. So that might be quite high priority to fix.
Right.
Maybe I am just cynical, right? In fact, I probably am just cynical.
I think you're right there. I think
they're
is
signing themselves up to to say that we're going to maintain these ships that are with older tech. They are probably going to be the more problematic ships. So I wonder whether it might just get to a point where you just say, actually, that's so much work to do. It's just going to go to the bottom of the queue, and it means that if you own an Aurora Mark 1, it's going to be really buggy, and nobody's going to want to fix it.
Yeah. And that's why I say I'd be worried about it if it is financial as opposed to just a tech debt fix. Because as much as a Mark II is cool for a ship that's outdated, as much as a Mark II is cool for any ship, really. I don't like any other space nerd. I like spaceships, but like they're always going to have to maintain these things. And we already know MMOs are expensive to run outside of having 500 distinct ships to need to support. So when we think about the end game of Star Citizen and like, do we want to have 200 developers dedicated to making sure all the ships are up to date? Or do we want to have 200 developers making sure that every star system has a custom storyline going on every year? I'm not saying that's the one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game. But when we think about developer numbers and money, when Star Citizen hits 1.0, I hope that there's more focus on the world they're building and the space we're experiencing as opposed to the ships that we have and maintaining them, you know?
Yeah.
On this topic,
Yeah.
sorry, we're going to get even
No,
more
go ahead.
controversial. The Aurora Mk2, the lesser known major thing it did was it essentially eliminated the $45 starting price for Star Citizen. When they brought in the Aurora Mk2, they replaced the Mustang in the, I think they call it the Citizen Starter Package. The Mustang was the $45 starter package to get you into the game. That is gone. They have replaced the Mustang with the Aurora Mk2, but they added it at a marked off price of $45. So you don't see the price increase right now. But whenever that sale ends, the price for Star Citizen will officially be $60 for the first time. How do you guys feel about the way they're doing that?
I think this is interesting. I made a video a while back that was kind of directed towards the people that were on the fence about the game. And I just basically said, like, I paid $45 for this game. And, I have pledged a ship beyond that. But for a long time, 6 months, I was just the $45 guy. And I thought my whole thing was like, sure, you're gonna run into bugs, but $45. I mean, I've gotten like 6 months of entertainment from this, and I play every day. So, I thought that $45 was a really good thing. Now they've got a lot of stuff in the game compared to last year. But I mean, they've got like Pyro, Nyx, and all this stuff, and a lot of things to do. Hathor, Onyx, now Rockbreaker. But that $60 thing. I saw you put that video out the other day, and it is interesting. It's an interesting thing. So I don't know. There's money to be made.
Well, how much?
I think it depends. So I don't know. I don't know if I can talk. Can I talk about streaming services on here? I think I can.
You have to mention if you're sponsored.
I have Disney Plus. I have Disney Plus. I'm not sponsored by Disney Plus. I have never paid the full price for Disney Plus. I've only ever bought it when it's on offer.
Totally sponsored.
There are things where I'm part of affiliate programs where I would say to people, do not pay full price for this, because these people run a sale every 2 or so months, wait for a sale, right? And this could be one of those things where at the moment it's $45 for a pretty decent starter package for a pretty decent ship, and that is quote unquote discounted. I regularly see these quote unquote discounts running at like free fly events or like those few times a year. So it might just be that you just say to people, yeah, if you want to buy Star Citizen, just make sure you buy it at one of these times of the year where they've got one of the big sales on, right? Because that's the time you buy it. So yeah, I don't know. It might be like one of those marketing things where they also know that, and in their minds, this is a $45 package, but they like to have it saying $45, which is down from $60. So you're getting a great deal, but then really they don't actually expect to sell them at $60. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I've been in the practice of only buying games on discount for this entire year. Besides Star Citizen, I bought it for $45. But an interesting thing, I will say, you can see it in my video. I titled the video, "So is Star Citizen a scam?" which is something that I Googled when I mean, that title is something that I put into the search bar when I was trying to figure out the game. So, but when I was making that video, I went to the starter package page, and I could only find the $60 one, and I had to go to a specific link to find the $45 starter pack, and I linked that, and you can watch that video. It's in the intro. So I don't know. There's interesting tactics, I think.
Yeah, it was inevitable. I mean, it's definitely going to go up in price. I was wondering how they were going to do it, and I figured last year after they took the Aurora off, it was going to come back at 60. I was still kind of wondering, were they going to try and somehow have the other $45 package still remain? But I think this was this was inevitable, and I was just not sure when it was going to happen.
I think the other thing that, to be fair, I have to call out is the cost of everything is going up. So
True.
I've just quickly put into the Bank of England inflation calculator for those who love the Bank of England inflation calculator. But
One of my
40
top visited websites.
top is some of my favorites. £45 in 2020 is now £57.92. So you could argue that actually a $45 package from 6 years ago is worth about $60 now anyway, just through the cost of everything going up. So
Yeah.
not to defend that, it's still a lot of money, but you
Well-
could argue that that's just a reflection of the world that we live in.
Well, it's interesting too because a lot of people assume most of the money that comes into this game comes from big ship purchases, and I'm not saying that's not true, but clearly they're like, you do have to calculate how much money are we spending on devs because the price of living is going up as inflation goes up and all this stuff is happening. We have to pay more to these devs, which means we need to make more on the bottom line, and so I mean they've been selling it at $45 for 14 years, right? So
yeah.
It should have come up, and I think most people were thinking how, well, it will come up when it becomes a real game. So at this point, you're like, will I pay $60 for an alpha? I would say most people should not. It's still the same answer, but for people who like space games, go ahead.
Also, the cool thing about Star Citizen is that the subscription is optional. With World of Warcraft, you pay $15. I've spent way more money on World of Warcraft the past 2 decades than I will Star Citizen. I mean, that's in the 4K range because of that.
This is it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the amount that you actually pay per hour you play depends on how much you play. And if you pay, I think this $45 package at the moment is actually quite fair value. I think the ship you get is good and the game is, I think, pretty fun. Like if you pay $45 and then you play the game every single day for a year, I think you've more than got your money's worth for that.
Even $60. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah,
I feel like
we just value games differently now. When we were kids, you could say, this game is $60. I'm going to hand it over to this person. They're going to hand me the disc and I'm going to walk home with it. And like, you got your $60 there. That's it. You kind of had to depend on that. But now it's like, if you like space games and you don't mind a janky environment, there are all the other games that you could and probably should try. But Star Citizen offers updates every couple months. It offers an experience that's hard to get in other games. You get access to everything for the buy-in price. And it's a live service. You're joining events. You're getting to play with friends. Like there is value being added over time. I don't think it's worth a $60 purchase for most people, but I do think that is going to change the equation for folks a lot.
And maybe they'll have more refunds and they'll switch it back. I don't know. But I think that just on what you're saying, half my channel is Red Dead Redemption 2. If you want to play a cowboy game, you can play a lot of cowboy games. There are a lot out there. But even if you don't want to play it, there's one game you really can't ignore, and that's Red Dead Redemption 2. I think space games, especially space MMOs, there are a lot out there, but there's one game you can't ignore, and I think that's Star Citizen. And I think that Squadron 42 for a single campaign, I think that's probably going to be the one game that you can't ignore for space solo campaigns. So
that actually sets us up for our next topic quite well. To wrap things up today, this has been really about the major directions of Star Citizen and where we're going. We didn't touch on everything that I was wanting to, but I think we got a really good lay of the land of kind of how things are progressing. So to wrap things up, I want to switch angles a little bit and talk about Squadron 42. This is, I think, the make or break for this entire project. If Squadron comes out and it fails, I don't think they're going to be in a very good place, just based off of kind of the investments that they're paying back and the timelines and all of that. But it is still looking like it's supposed to be coming out this year. Marketing hasn't picked up. They haven't made their official announcement. Invictus approaches. There's a lot of talk surrounding this. So I'll pose to you guys, what are you expecting from Squadron 42? Do you expect it to be a good game? Do you expect it to be middle of the park or a failure? And on top of that, what do you think it needs to be for Star Citizen?
Yeah, so
Farrister is the OG director, so go Farrister.
well, I made a video about this a couple of weeks back, being like, "Hey, it's 2026. We don't have a release date yet," and I got a very mixed response to that video. I think all the mood music seems to be everybody saying we're still aiming for 2026, but it almost seems to be purposely ambiguous. And my gut feel is I think they're probably waiting to see. I think the game will be able to be ready this year. I think they're probably waiting to see what the external environment is like because they want Squadron 42 to be a really big hit. It's got an A-list cast. It is going to be, I think, a great single-player game, but they're going to want to make sure that they launch that at a time when it's going to have the biggest impact. So I don't think, my gut feel is I think it could be ready this year. I think it'll probably end up down to the wire. It always does, but I think it's potential. I think probably the go or no-go decision will be more about what's going on externally. I expect from Squadron 42 an incredible game. I think it's going to be quite different to what a lot of people have seen of late, in that I think it's going to be as much a cinematic experience as a gameplay experience. So I think people will be quite surprised by like the length of some of the cutscenes and things like that. So it's going to feel somewhere between like playing an incredible video game and watching an incredible movie. But I think the experience is going to be really, really good. I think it's going to be something quite different from what a lot of people have seen in some of the more modern titles, because I think those tend to skew more towards gameplay, but particularly for people that enjoy story-driven games, I think it's going to be incredible. I don't know that it's going to prepare people for Star Citizen in quite the same way, because Star Citizen is almost pure gameplay. Like there's no cutscenes, there's no story. It's just a similar type of game in the same universe. So I don't know how much crossover there will end up being, but I think it will certainly increase interest in Star Citizen. But personally, I'm really excited for Squadron 42. I bought Star Citizen to play Star Citizen. Squadron 42 was kind of a nice bonus, but like watching the CitizenCon demo, hearing people talking about it, speaking to some of the devs that have been working on it, like I'm excited to play it. I'm excited to experience it.
Yeah, it's sounding really exciting. And I just want to interject there real quick. You had mentioned the kind of scene of the year in the release. Do you think that because at the end of last year, Archetype announced that Exodus would be coming out in 2027, which was a possibility for 26, and then actually just this week, Owlcat just announced that their Expanse game is coming out next year rather than this year as well. So I'm not going to try and convince everyone these are direct competitors. I do think people are interested in space games, story-based space games in general. But do you think that that may have had any effect? Like maybe they were watching those releases this year to judge what the second half was going to look like?
My gut feel is I think GTA 6 is the big one they're avoiding. I don't think they're too worried about competition from other space games because they've got such an all-star cast for this. Like, I feel like this will be the talking point for space games. I think the hope is that actually the potential reach for this is broader than just people who are interested in space games. And I mean, when you watch the cinematic trailer for Squadron 42 from CitizenCon, like it looks incredible. I think it will have a much broader appeal if they can get it in front of people's eyes, and they can use some of those A-list names to say, you know, Mark Strong is in it, Henry Cavill is in it, Mark Hamill is in it, Gillian Anderson is in it. Like the opportunity to get it in front of people's eyes is huge. When GTA 6 releases, nobody anywhere is going to be talking about anything other than GTA 6. Hit or miss, like that is going to dominate the headlines. And I think they probably, and I don't know, right? I don't work in marketing. It's almost a shame that Starjump isn't here because probably would offer some much more considered thoughts than I would. But my gut feel is they want to be on the front pages of everything with this game because it has the promise to be epic. But to do that, they'll need to avoid GTA 6 because that is just going to be on the front pages of everything. They're going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing for that game, and the hype for it is going to be unreal.
Yeah, ad prices are going to skyrocket as soon as GTA starts its marketing campaign. And I feel like, if Squadron is October and GTA is November, they're going to be running very close marketing campaigns. Even if they're not competing, that just makes everything more expensive for CIG, less eyeballs.
Tomato, question for you. I saw that you did a financial. Is CIG kind of within the same ballpark or ahead from last year? First quarter.
The financials we get are for the year prior, so we only have 24 so
Oh.
far.
Okay. Anyways, so for Squadron 42, I think that I agree with Farrister. I think that the idea that they're going, speaking as a content creator, the minute that GTA 6 comes out, I'm gone from every game. I'm doing content about that. I'm playing that game for the next couple of months. And it's just too much of a big opportunity. The thing with Squadron 42 is, I think for a lot of people in the community, in the Star Citizen community, they think that that Star Citizen is the main game, and it might be. I don't know, but I think for some people, the main game is Squadron 42. I've talked to people on Reddit that don't play Star Citizen. They're like, I just backed this for Squadron 42, still waiting for it. So I think that Squadron 42 is going to capture, if it's good, and I think it's going to be good. I think the question of whether it's going to be good, just based on the gameplay, the trailers, how people are talking about it, how Chris talks about it, how the devs talk about it. I think I would bet money on that it's going to be a great game. But I think that I lost my train of thought here, but the idea that sorry.
No problem, dude.
I was just totally lost my train of thought, but
Star Citizen will do that to you.
It's too much to think about. It will. I agree with you, though. I think it will be a good game. You thinking that it's gonna attract a certain type of player?
Yeah. So I think that it's going to attract an entirely different audience base, personally, because there are people that don't want to play MMOs. They don't, and whether or not we all want Star Citizen to be polished when that comes out, so there's like the maximum conversion over to Star Citizen. I don't even think that they're thinking about that personally, because imagine a world where they sell 1 million copies. Imagine a world where they sell 2 million copies or 5 million copies. I mean, in a year or two, like that would be insane for the revenue of the business. So I think that it'd be a really good thing for Squadron 42 to release at like a maximal impact moment. I would think that if they wanted to go before GTA 6, it would be in the middle of the summer or early summer, which we would be seeing advertisements for.
Yeah.
I think that GTA 6 is coming out November 19th. I don't know. I think that 2027 probably more realistic in my opinion. And I think that it's just going to be, as far as like solo campaigns, especially once word gets out that it's like a good game, it's a solid game. And I think that the people that don't play Star Citizen are going to play that game. I think it's going to be a huge moment for the company. But I think the question is not whether it's good, it's whether they get that maximal impact.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So.
It's got to be a good release. We'll see, though. Guys, I want to wrap it up there. This has been an extra long one, and the half the screen has dropped out, so as you can tell, a very intense conversation, folks, if you did come into the show live, but I appreciate everybody for coming and watching, listening if you are after the fact. Farrister and Premo, thank you guys so much for joining me for this talk.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, can we, one last time before we go, any last thoughts you have about the topics we talked about, Squadron 42, anything you want to get off your chest, and give people one last reminder about where they can find your content?
Go ahead, Farrister.
No other thoughts on Squadron 42, other than I'm excited to fly a javelin in it. I think that will be fun. And I still can't explain why the Gladius Dun Levy exists. I think it's been an interesting conversation. It's been really nice to meet you, Premo, and good to chat as always,
Yeah.
Space Tomato. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/Farrister, and I can usually be found lurking in various places as well.
The lurk. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah.
Premo?
Thanks for coming in, or thanks for having me. And it's a wonderful community to be a part of, the Star Citizen community. And so yeah, you can find me on Twitter, X, as Premo Says Things, and on YouTube. So just thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for coming on. I've been watching your videos for a while, and I think we bounce into each other every once in a while on Twitter. Appreciate the more of like the newcomer angle that you're taking with the content, and thank you for coming on.
The one thing that I will say as a closing statement, my heart goes out to the OGs, Farrister. I mean, the people that have held the line, and it's so interesting to come in as a new player that doesn't have those tethers, doesn't have those, not tethers, but just doesn't have that perspective of what the game was originally promised. I'm just coming in as, when I first made the first video, it's like, I didn't even know what Squadron 42 was. And it's just interesting to see the OGs and how much commitment they've given. And I just have to have a big thank you to those people, because they're the reason why I'm playing the game.
I find it so weird that you call me an OG, because I'm like, I only backed in 2014. Like, I'm quite late to the party compared to the Kickstarter guys.
Yeah, be like that, huh? All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for coming to this show. Thank you, everybody, for watching the Citizen Central podcast. We do this one. It's occasional. We're starting to get back into the rhythm of things, though. So once a month, I try to bring in some creators, streamers, some folks who are making content around Star Citizen to talk about Star Citizen and what's going on. So if you're into that, make sure to subscribe to Space Tomato 2. Check out the playlist for this podcast in the content. And also check out Launch Sequence. We do that every week with a one-on-one talk. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. If you're here live, stick around. We're still playing. We're actually jumping into a massive 40-plus person crafting operation with my org. So we'll be getting into some gameplay after this, and I will be back with you guys. Otherwise, if you're just watching this after the fact, I hope you enjoyed this talk, had a great time, got some good information, maybe some entertainment, and I will see you guys all in the next one.